Okay. Is it working?
It
I guess
is
so.
working. There you go.
Okay.
Nice.
So, good morning, everyone. I'm Luigi Cantisani. I'm a lawyer based in Italy. I'm skilled in international trade law, business transaction, and alternative dispute resolution. Well, basically online dispute resolution, since I serve as external advisor for one of this project. And I've been invited to give you an insight regarding possible blockchain-based and tokenomics applications that could connect, tokenomics logic to the interest pursued by public administration. So that's the end goal of this, presentation. Harmonizing token economics models so that they can serve public administration. And this is, interesting for developers or entrepreneur willing to start projects in Italy, and specifically in Turin. So let's begin. I will give you, a short presentation, but feel free to interrupt me whenever you want, because I prefer you to pose questions and, ask suggestion. I like to be super practical. So I want to immediately introduce you a bunch of few, let's say, use cases. Each time that this is what I believe, each time that you want to start a project that is aiming at serving public interest, and so something that could be useful to improve sustainability, now something that could meet citizens' need, is important to ask yourself to think, what are public administration really pursuing in that very territory, so in our case in Turin, and what citizens want. Okay, once you understand these 2 points, you need to start thinking of a real use case that can somehow match those interests. Okay, and once you find it, you can start thinking of a tokenomic model that can somehow uh, make this solution, this application viable, interesting, and used, in some ways. Something that could keep the players involved engaged. Okay, only after doing that, I suggest to start thinking of the legal challenges, because if you start thinking if you are immediately like, oh, can I do this, can I do that, how is it law there, you will probably be like self-constrained somehow, like you will limit your own imagination and creativity. And this is not good, in my view, at the beginning. After getting your idea, after start fantasizing on a project, then you can, at some point start questioning yourself about the legal challenges that are involved. But don't do that since the very beginning. Otherwise, you will just limit your own creativity. And that is not good in my way. Legal issues
Looks like you hit your mute button.
Yeah, Luigi, we can't hear you. I think you lost the connection.
can be tackled some questions. The first use case that I want to
Luigi?
present. Yes,
We
sorry. Yes.
we lost you for like maybe 5-10 seconds. So if you just don't mind, just saying the last 2 sentences again.
Yeah. Basically, what I said is I strongly recommend to think of the legal challenges at the later stage. Okay, after having thought a project. Okay, because if you are kind of can I do this, can I do that, you're just limiting your imagination, your creativity, your own creativity, and that is not good, because legal challenges can be tackled somehow. You can work around them, but a project that is not good won't become good after facing legal challenges. Okay, this is what I observe, what I've observed during my experience. And now I want to move to a few projects that, in my view, are a good way to match citizens' needs and public interests. Okay, what public administrations in Italy, but I guess all over the world, really pursue. So this is the first use case that I'm going to present you. It's named Jure. Okay, I serve as an external advisor for this project, so I can give you more details about this project if you ask. I can do the same for other projects because I'm not personally involved. What is Jure? Basically, Jure is a blockchain-based platform, okay, developed by the company named Jure, that is based in Switzerland. And this platform is meant to cover, as I love to say, the whole life cycle of contractual relationship. This means that on the Jure platform, you can transpose your contract, your legal contract, and announce it in some way by relying on smart contracts. As of today, you can support your smart contract just with the escrow smart contract, okay? But in the future, you could do more. But above all, what is interesting about Jure is that you have online dispute resolution mechanisms that are embedded. So in the event of a dispute, you can rely on online dispute resolution. And this is something that has been kind of underestimated in the past years. But now, due to the COVID crisis, I believe that people are starting to be more interesting in ways for resolving disputes quickly, at low cost, on procedures that are completely online. I don't know our things in US at the moment, but I can easily tell you that in Italy, most of the civil courts are closed, or just for case there are just address cases that are considered extremely urgent, just stuff like that.
Yeah, no, it's the same. It's the same, but it's also it really highlights that people were or countries were more advanced in civic tech. I mean, there's a lot said that in Taiwan, they manage a lot because they could do a lot of things online. They could vote online. They could submit all these claims online and so on. So yeah.
Okay, so how does this project respond to the two questions that I suggested before? What public administration could pursue? Facilitating business transaction and reducing litigation. I mean, reducing litigation within the civil courts, which is a problem in Italy, and I guess it is the same in many countries. On the citizen's perspective, what citizens want? Being sure that the transaction will work, being sure that, doing executing the contract, performing the contract, being paid and stuff like that will be executed somehow, and doing all of this stuff, all of these things at a low cost. This is what citizens are interested in, and this is what this platform is pursuing. And at the center of this ecosystem, there is the Jure token. That is the token that users use to let's say upload their contract, include and use the escrow smart contract, starting disputes. And it's also the tokens that let's say people that vote on the disputes, because there are different this online dispute resolutions methods in this platform, and one of this and two of this mechanism involve people voting. Okay, the other case is pure arbitration, but just done online, just executed online. Okay, and the other two mechanism, you have people voting, okay? And the token is a tool to reward all the players involved within the ecosystem. And this is how you can basically connect all the interest. A platform that serves needs, and a token that is used as a value, as a representation of a value for using the platform, but also for being rewarded. Is this project become kind of concrete? Is it really serving public administration? Well, I'm glad to inform you that in 2019, Jor signed an agreement with the Republic of San Marino that is interested in using basically the whole ecosystem, but it's extremely interested in one of the online dispute resolution that I mentioned, the cart layer, which is basically arbitration made online, entirely made online, okay, within this platform by using the Jur token and all the features of the Jur ecosystem. And so, as you can see, there are public administration, in this case, even states, even if it's a small state, it's still a state. They are interested in, improving access to justice somehow, facilitating business transaction, reducing civil litigation. And so I believe that this is interesting. Justice could be an interesting area to be explored by entrepreneurs and developers interested in, developing projects in Italy. Another use case. Yes.
Can I ask you something before you go to the next case study? I was wondering if you had seen what was, in your opinion, more like legal opinion, like the more successful path, if it was for blockchain native projects to comply with the public administration requirements and kind of this additional layer of requirements, or if it was more like projects were pretty much created within like the public administration and adding like kind of a blockchain element to it. I'm asking because there was this like pretty successful project called the Kleros, with like dispute resolution, and I'm wondering how it would compare to a Jur token.
Okay, this is the idea. Jur was born basically as a tool for online dispute resolutions. At some point, we decided to make the project even bigger by including tools that we are developing for creating, for using smart contracts, but I mean different kind of smart contracts. Like I mentioned the escrow smart contract, but that is not the only thing that we are developing. Because think of a traditional contract, you have many clauses, okay? And if you wanna like including self-execution, you need to think how to automate those clauses, those traditional clauses. So what we're doing right now is thinking of self-executing, how we can automate traditional clauses that you usually find in the contract. And the target audience, let's say, were business people. So this ecosystem is basically born for B2B transaction. But after developing it, we noted that certain public administrations are interested in using it, or at least part of it, to provide for different ways for resolving disputes, because it's tough for certain administration to develop an infrastructure on your own. So if you find a tool that is already, well, that is kind of ready-made, ready to be used, and it's interesting, then you can use it. But just and I hope that this will respond to your question. The token economic model was thought since the beginning. We immediately thought of using blockchain and game theory principles, as a guideline for rewarding people by using tokens. Why? Because blockchain and especially smart contracts are a useful tool for one, tracking all the information. So let's say that we want to reinvent arbitration, and we're doing that with the card layer, tracking everything, having every information stored on blockchain in a hashified form, having smart contract for automating certain part of the procedure, having smart contract for automating closings within the contract. All of this is so useful. So if you look at contracts, if you look at dispute resolution, in both these case scenarios, having blockchain for tracking immutability, storing hashified information, and automating is super useful. So blockchain element was not something that was added later at a later stage. No, it was there since the beginning.
Cool, thank you.
Was it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, glad to hear that. I'm going to quickly present other two projects. In these two projects, I'm not personally involved, so obviously I don't have as much information as I had for this one, but I hope that could be interested. And one of this project is based in Turin. We will be there in a short while. So the second case, probably you've heard of it. It's IOTA's Tangle ID technology. Okay, as you probably know, IOTA basically is kind of connecting distributed ledger technology. They don't use the expression blockchain because what they have is not actually a blockchain stricto sensu, is more a distributed ledger technology. We all know that distributed ledger technology are the large group, and blockchains are a kind of distributed ledger technology with certain characteristics. Anyways, what IOTA is doing right now is trying to provide for real use cases, something that goes beyond just pure and speculative token economics. So applying token economics model to real case scenario. And they're interested in the notion of smart cities, making cities smart. They provided an interesting report on their vision, highlighting the benefits of smart cities. By the way, if you want, after this presentation, I will be glad to share this file with you. So if you want to have this information, all these links,
Yeah, it would be great if you can share it in the ETHTurin Discord. So if people are, hacking, wanna have a look or ask you questions, that's super useful. Thanks.
Okay, tell me when you want me to do that. Can I do it right now? Is it easier?
No, just do it after. After. Yeah.
Okay. So, which was the starting point for IOTA for allowing for smart city application? Tangle ID, in other words, digital identity, creating a tool that represents the digital identity of the citizen. Once you have a digital identity, and I mean, this could be applied for every smart city project vision. Once you have a digital identity, you can use it, as a way, first, for protecting citizens' identities. Two, as a way for allowing citizens to interact with public services. Imagine of public transport. Think of parking, stuff like that, okay? And if you connect other blockchain-based services and also IoT, Internet of Things applications, so sensors, for instance, it's easily to track actions, collect data, and use those data for a certain operation. For instance, let's say that I want to incentivize people in using public transport, so as to reduce pollution. Okay, I can, if I have a digital identity as a starting point, and I have other services that are connected to this digital identity, I can easily track how the citizen is behaving if he's using public transport. And for instance, I can reward him. I can reward that very citizen with tokens, or I can grant, I can facilitate access to other services. There are many things that you can do once you have a digital identity. You can even start thinking of e-voting, okay, for, I don't know, municipality elections, stuff like that. But the digital identity should be the starting point, because otherwise you cannot connect all of these things. And they developed Tangle ID, and they signed an agreement in 2019 with the capital city of Taiwan, Taipei, for this project that you can see in the slide. It's called Taipei Smart City Living Lab. And the idea is incorporating distributed ledger technology and also IoT application into smart city applications, okay? And the starting point is obviously Tangle ID, which will be used to create digital ID, okay, for citizens. This is the starting point. And among the examples that they mentioned, there is reducing the risk of election fraud, preventing identity theft, and storing citizens' health data and other important information. But if you decide to start a smart city project, once this is my suggestion, immediately think of an idea for handling digital identity, and after that, don't restrict yourself. You can think, there are so many applications that you can think of, and you can use token economics, okay, models, as a way for incentivizing people. Basically, what you need to do is connecting rewards to ethical value, or some kind of values that can push for more sustainability. This is what you need to connect in this case. This is my view list. So I would move on to the next case, unless you have questions in general about smart cities or ID, a digital ID. Okay.
Have you seen some projects in Italy or in Torino, or is IOTA also experimented with in Italy?
As far as I know, I'm not informed about IOTA projects in Italy at this point. I've heard of certain other kind of smart city projects within Italy, but nothing truly concrete at the moment. I've heard of a project that is named Milano Coin, so based in Milan. But honestly, they do not share so much information, so I don't know if the project is currently,
Yeah.
going on, if it's been stopped, put on hiatus, and stuff like that.
Maybe we can ask. I think Giovanni is on the call, so he spent a lot of time in Milan.
Okay.
Gio, have you heard of this Milano coin?
No, actually not.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
It's a very interesting project.
I just read a bunch of information about this, but as I said, I don't know if things are currently moving on. And as regards Turin,
But you know the people that are working on it, like names, no?
yes, but I can recall them. If you want later, I can share something. Just a couple of names. So I'm not even sure about the organization, because, as I said, they didn't share so much. I just saw a Facebook page, something like that, but not many other information are currently available. So I don't really know if it's truly concrete at the moment.
Maybe it's a secret. Sorry.
Yeah.
I'm kind of monitoring everything that happens. But at early stage, you cannot easily assess if something is really concrete or if it's just an idea. But yes, you asked me about Turin, so let's move on with the next use case, which is not exactly a smart city project, but kind of, because uh, this project was started not by a private actors, but the University of Turin. This project is named Commonshood, and so I don't know how it works under, let's say, U.S. law, but under Italian law, university are public administration on its own. Okay, like the municipality, they are public administrations. They're not just uh, institution for instruction, for education and research. They are public administration. And this project has been developed, yes, by the University of Turin, keeping into consideration certain initiatives of citizens. And what is Converging? It's basically a wallet hub that is doing something quite innovating. It's not just an app for trading, for storing and trading and using tokens. It's also an app that allows communities or other kind of players to issue their own tokens in order to let's say support, encourage uh, the development of the local economy in a way that is sustainable. I mean, the end goal is sustainability. That is what they uh, love to underline when talking about their mission. Okay, and so at the center of this wallet application, there is the idea of distributing different customized types of tokens. Okay, in order to sustain group of activities. And on their official website, they listed many kind of applications, like creating prepaid cards that will rely on this wallet application, discount coupons, starting crowdfunding campaigns and stuff like that, also implementing cashback rewards. So if you look at it, it's not just a wallet application, kind of different. It's an ecosystem. It's based on a wallet application, but it's more like an ecosystem, because different kind of activities could take place within this ecosystem. This is my understanding of this project.
We can actually ask them, because they're in the Discord channel of ETHTurin, because they're one of the partners on of the main track for our hackers. So
It would be
questions. Yeah, they can definitely. I mean, for me, like, the main question for all of these projects that are like great to, like, provide like local, as you said, like provide local sustainable development is really, how do you pass the problem of like having a wallet, having to like understand this, like for people who have no idea or interest in like more like getting into like crypto currencies, like too deep, I would say. So how do you make it easy to onboard people and seamless?
Yeah, I perfectly understand, and this is my opinion. Okay, and I also seeing at this issue while working with Shure. In my own view, it's not really important communicating people, I mean, to casual users, things about blockchain, token economics. You just need to provide them a tool and rewards that are easy to understand. I mean, when we use web browsers like we're doing right now, we are not thinking of, the protocols that govern these applications. No, we're not doing that. We're just looking at an application. We're just looking at a web platform for starting video conferences like we're doing right now. So we are not really thinking of the technology that is, beyond the curtain. And my idea, we should be able to do this also with blockchain-based application, because blockchain, at the end of the day, is just a protocol. People don't need to know about it. Being focused on the real use case, on the advantages, is the only thing that truly matters in in my view, sorry.
No, amen.
Sorry? What did you
I
say?
said amen to that. Like this is yeah, like the end goal is very much we agree on the end goal. Definitely.
Yeah. So if you want more information, I suggest to go visit the official website of Commons.org, and this is the sustainable development goals according to the UN that they are pursuing. And as of today, they are finalists for a competition handled by the European Union. So they will compete with other 23 candidates for a huge prize. So this is kind of interesting because we are talking about something that is really concrete and is attracting a lot of attention. So, because this is probably what you want to hear, Hal, what are the legal challenges when you start a project in Italy? As I said, I don't think that it's useful to start thinking about legal issues since the very beginning, especially because Italy does not have a solid and well-established legal framework for blockchain and smart contracts at the moment, and for token as well, okay, for cryptocurrencies as well. But there are certain provisions, provisions here and there that can be applied to blockchain and smart contract, and I suggest to look at these provisions. Basically, the so-called simplification decree of 2019, the law, 2018, provides for a definition of distributed ledger technologies. Okay, so not exactly blockchain, but the definition of the entire group of distributed ledger technology. So I suggest to look at this definition and see if what you're developing falls within this definition, okay? Which is pretty vague in my view and not so well, drafted, but it's the only legal definition that you have within Italy. So I suggest to look at it. And also you have a definition for smart contracts. The thing that is important in my view, sorry, there is a mistake here. I will fix it later before sharing the presentation. The most important thing is that this provision states that smart contracts, okay, can have the same legal value as traditional contracts. So it's a sort of comparison between smart contracts that are just a tool to automate, okay? They are not traditional contracts per se. But they can have the same value if they meet certain requirements that will be established by the Agency for Digital Italy. Guess what? The Agency for Digital in Italy have not defined these criteria and requirements yet. So it's all pretty vague as of today. And we'll see how things will evolve in the future. But this is something that you can start exploring right now, because the same article, the article 8 there, of the simplification decree, provides that documents, okay, stored by means of distributed ledger technologies have the same legal effect of electronic timestamp. What does it mean? It's basically a reference to the so-called IDAS regulation, which is a regulation applied within the entire European Union that regulates e-documents, electronic documents, and electronic signatures and electronic timestamps. Okay? In my opinion, go into these technicalities once you have a clear idea in mind of your project, okay? Because otherwise you will start questioning the wheres, the whys, and the hows in a way that is too, like, could be too obsessive and could limit your own creativity. So do not do that, okay? What I suggest to do instead, here you have more information to understand, the different definition of electronic stamp under the EIDAS regulation, but you can read this information later. I strongly suggest to be more concerned about GDPR, because that is a thing. And that is something that you need to think of since the beginning, okay? I am sure that you have heard of GDPR. Is basically the European regulation for data processing and circulation of data, It's important because this regulation provides that every way for processing data should be GDPR compliant by default and by design. These are two principles listed within the GDPR, which means that you need, if you are creating an application that is based on the use of blockchain, you need to think of it, you need to plan it, you need to design it in a way that is immediately compliant with the GDPR. And obviously you cannot completely change your project at a later stage. You cannot be at the very end of the development and question yourself, can this, meet GDPR compliance requirements? No, this is something that you need to think of in advance. This is the only thing that I suggest, the only legal matter that I suggest to think of since the very beginning if you want to start a project, not only in Turin, not only in Italy, but in the entire European Union. Okay? I think that there's no much time to go into the technicalities of the GDPR, but obviously if you are interested in learning more, reach out to me.
Can we a little dig into GDPR? Can we dig a little bit into GDPR? I just have a question. Because the conflicting element is, like the first one is pretty big. I mean, this is like, how do you even thinking about it? Like, how do you even go around that? Because
okay, I love this one. It's the most interesting because it really requires clever ideas to work around it.
Okay.
Basically, the GDPR provides that the so-called right of deletion, citizens, okay, people,
right to be forgotten.
right to be forgotten, exactly, the right to be forgotten, which means that I can ask to someone to delete my data, my account, okay? How can you do that on blockchain? This is very tricky, okay? Basically, the GDPR says that you can do things, okay, that the effort that can be demanded is basically what is reasonable according to the current state of art. So,
You gotta love the formulation.
what is reasonable according to the current state of art?
It's poetry to me. It's like really. It's like.
So, what is my understanding, and also the understanding of other lawyers about this, if we cannot really delete information that are stored on a blockchain, because obviously blockchain is immutable. I'm oversimplifying, but I guess that you know what I mean. Uh, how can we solve this issue? Well, basically, a good way for tackling this issue is storing certain data in an hashified form on a blockchain, adding off-chain database. So, the hash, okay, has to make reference to the information that is stored somewhere else, okay? And then you need to think of a way for deleting the cryptographic keys. Because if I cannot really delete the information that are stored on blockchain, I need at least to make this information unusable. And if I have a way for deleting the keys, okay, I can prevent anyone from using the information that are stored on chain. Data that are stored off chain are not a problem. You can delete them. But data that are stored on chain are way more problematic. But if you prevent people from accessing the data, it's not really like deleting data, but it's the biggest effort that you can do according to the current state of art.
Yeah, it's a second best pretty much option.
Yeah, you cannot, formally speaking, they're not deleted, but substantially they're kind of, because no one can use them.
Yeah.
So
do you know, sorry, I have another question on GDPR. Do you know, so obviously the text for GDPR has all been written before, for centralized databases. So have you heard of any talk about updating it, or are they sticking to just this, or what are they going to do?
Okay, I'm basically reading all the reports from the European Forum and Observatory, which is actually a body, okay, of the European Union studying these issues, especially the conflict between GDPR and blockchain. And they expressly admitted that obviously the GDPR was not intended with decentralized systems in mind. It was meant for centralized systems, so traditional digital organization with a central authority, a central body, a central player.
Yeah, well, wouldn't it be more accurate to say that it was meant for third-party custodians and blockchains removed the third-party custodian?
It makes sense, exactly, because in a certain way, blockchain basically shift the paradigm. It moved this is exactly what you said, and so they admitted this conflict cannot be really solved. Maybe to a certain extent, certain provisions of the GDPR could be applied for permission blockchain, where you have a central player, let's say, because the idea of permission blockchain with someone who grants access to other players is way more similar to traditional centralized systems, but it's not really applicable to in completely decentralized ecosystems such as Ethereum, Bitcoin. Obviously, it's not, because anyone is its own data controller in those ecosystems. You're all in the same horizontal layer. There's no really verticality. Well, at least not in the sense intended by the GDPR.
Yeah, I've been making the argument that the only way to be GDPR compliant is to not have any data, basically.
Well,
it's actually quite awesome for blockchain cryptographically provable, hashes of data that belong to the user. It's really the only way for a company to be compliant is to not have access to any customer's data on any sort of centralized database. So I find the dialogue in Europe. So I'm based in Austria. I find the dialogue in Europe to be, quite off the mark in that sense. Yeah. So we're building systems here at Parallele Polis, both from everything from being able to prove what code is running in your browser up through server infrastructure and hosting infrastructure, and then all the way up to the level of financial lotteries. And the systems that we're building are all premised on that the only data that we have is data that can be public, and everything else is cryptographically hidden with either zero knowledge proofs or whatever. Yeah. Because we believe that that's the only way that companies can eventually become GDPR compliant.
I see your point. I believe that something that is really, it really requires a case-by-case analysis. Like, answer does not fit all. It really depends on what you're developing, what is your application aiming at, and as much as you can avoid personal data, or at least if you need personal data, if you can add anonymized data. I mean, if you can develop something that is more based on anonymized data, that's the best, because as far as you are relying on anonymized data, you don't fall within the application of the GDPR.
The GDPR was written for a MySQL world, and we're departing a MySQL world.
Yeah.
Essentially. I mean, people don't realize how determinative actually the database structure of MySQL, how culturally and economically determinative it is for how it is that everything works around us. Yeah.
Yeah, I know it. I know, yeah. But this is something, humanity is not aware of at the moment. Not completely, at least, in my view. What do you think of it?
I'm sorry, what was the question?
No, I'm saying I believe that this is not something that the whole humanity is aware of at the moment. Don't you agree?
Yeah, no, it's a very, very nerd thing. And I would say even inside of our circles, even inside of IT people or InfoSec people or whatever, there's very, very few people that actually realize how programmed their whole framework for thinking and building systems is, just by the virtue of the fact that MySQL is the dominant way of acquiring, storing, and accessing data.
Yeah.
It's not even a broad public problem. It's inside of our industry. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's also like, it's very much, as you said, like, it's like, I mean, people know how it works, but it's like, how do you like make it the central problem and like make it like it's yeah.
I guess the best way that
I say let's make t-shirts. Like,
the best way that I explain it metaphorically or with simile is that the language that you grow up in is a framework for how it is that you perceive the world, right? So I mean, if you don't have the word blue, for example, right? There's no way for you to explain blue. If you're an Indian in South America and don't have a concept or a word for warship, there's no way for you to understand what's coming over the horizon, right?
Yeah.
And so that's the best way that I metaphorically describe, the MySQL issue or database issues, is that if you don't have the framework for or the words for understanding what it is, or if you do, you think in that framework. There's words in German that don't exist in English. You know what I mean? And so these computer languages that we use and that we build our systems on have an incredible effect just on the whole matrix or framework of thinking that people contact. And that's what the revolution of immutable databases is, or an agreed upon world state, is that it changes the whole framework for thinking about how it is that we access and store and recall data. Yeah.
Of course, but also the players involved in blockchain-based ecosystem. I mean, think of just users, nodes, full nodes. It's something that is far away, so far away from the paradigm based on data controller, data processor, is way too different, you know?
Well, I agree with that to a degree, but remember that all that Satoshi did was take BitTorrent and combine it with essentially an immutable database. Yeah. So basically GitHub. Yeah. That's all that Bitcoin is GitHub, a Miracle Tree plus BitTorrent. So these technologies, been around for 20 years, and the thoughts around them combined with cryptography have been around, I guess the research is 30, 35 years. It's not that it hasn't been around and people haven't been messing with it. It's just not the dominant economic paradigm or the institutional paradigm.
Yeah, it's peer-to-peer basis, which is something that already existed before.
So the whole idea of nodes and networked and distributed communications, they've been around basically since the inception of the internet. But we went off into this whole area of recreating the real world economy with digital economy, with digital economics, online selling and everything. And that's where the world went, while simultaneously all of these other thoughts and ways of doing things were actually being developed and existed. Yeah. So I think it's been more of an economic question. Yeah, that was the new growth field, was internet business. Yeah. Sure. If I could kick myself for one thing that I did online in my whole online life, and I've been online since 1983, is selling, working at advertising agencies and explaining to clients that you could granularly tell by click-through what exactly a customer wanted or was doing, as in comparison to print ads or TV ads. I mean, I sat in pitch sessions explaining to people how granularly you could get access to that information. I could kick myself now for being so naive back then. Yeah. But yeah, so I think the GDPR issue is actually a place where we can really make a lot of, we can win a lot of ground for the technology. Yeah, I don't think it's a problem. I think it's an opportunity.
I think, yeah. And also, if you look at the grand scheme of things, okay, even if they're based on completely different concept, they're kind of working in the same direction, because they both target more data security. They both target data sovereignty to citizens. So if you look at can you hear me?
Yeah.
Because I thought there was a problem with my connection. Okay, so if you look at the very, purpose, they're kind of same in some way.
I agree.
It's just a matter of complementing them. Yes, the easy suggestion could be just escape GDPR, rely on anonymized data. But if you want to do something that really allows you to match the citizens' needs with public interest, like digital identity, as we see in the previous example, public service that could be connected to a digital identity, to a wallet, online dispute resolution managed online on a blockchain-based application. You need data. So you can.
Here's the thing is, though, we have that. I can revoke my identity keys and create a new one. Okay, so the parallel world is already here. I already have control over my identity and my data if I'm an informed internet citizen, okay, which I consider myself to be. So I can revoke my identity keys and create a new identity on Keybase, PGP keys. I can create a whole new a whole new trail of proofs of who I am that allows me to interact with the people that I want to interact with. Okay, that world exists for us for 10 years now. What doesn't exist is the institutional and legacy governmental acceptance of that, and jurisprudence, judgments that grant those rights to people. We live parallel society where you and I can do this because we understand and agree it, and the government any government can't stop how it is that you and I transact or prove our identities to each other. So the only thing lacking is the institutional and jurisprudential recognition of that reality.
I agree with you, and this reminds me of the words suggested by the European Blockchain Forum and Observatory. They basically said, in this very moment, since the written provisions are not very blockchain friendly, okay, we strongly recommend lawmakers and courts, jurisprudence, basically, to be way more flexible while interpreting these provisions.
So I would be perfectly prepared. For example, if I did a transfer of a piece of property that I own, let's use a car, or let's use a house. Yeah, either one. Classic property transfer. In Austria, I would need to go to a notary, and I need to have that beglaubigt, stamped and whatever. Huge amount of money in the economy used for approving documents. Apostille international proof of documents and whatever. We have electronic proof of signature with DocuSign. We have a national electronic signature in Austria. I would be if I was to do a transaction of property and was satisfied with the public-private key exchange between myself and the person who I did it with, I would be perfectly willing and capable to sit in an Austrian court and say to them, this data you cannot disprove. And I recognize no other state sanctioned way of proving that this transaction happened. I would demand that the court prove to me how it is that the digital notarization that we have with Merkle trees can be disproved. Yeah?
Guys, I think I don't mean to cut you off, Michael, but I'm cutting you off.
Yeah, it's okay.
And no, I mean, this is again, I think we could spend a few hours, but I really like your perspective, Michael, on turning GDPR as people are like, oh, it's a constraint and everything, into like something that is an opportunity, and to actually make data security and data sovereignty more like the main focus. So I want to give you, Luigi, a chance to close, or if you have a final statement or something you want to leave us with, and then we have I think the next presenters who are here.
Okay, now just a quick recap. As I said, always think of what public administrations are pursuing in that very territory, what citizens would like to have. Think of a way for communicating these things easily. If you want to start a project in Turin, but this applies to the whole Italy, do not be stressed by the definitions of blockchain and smart contract, because as you saw, those provisions literally delegated the task for interpretation and requirement to another agency, which has no answer at the moment. So don't be stressed by that. Be more concerned about GDPR and data protection. That is more important, but it's not really a limitation. It's a kind of opportunity. And I believe that, with clever thoughts, clever ideas, you can match this apparent conflicting worlds. That's my suggestion. And for any other question, feel free to contact me. I'm always available, and I love chatting, as you can see.
Luigi, please find me on Twitter or any of the channels that we're on as Exiled Surfer. I'd like to stay in touch with you.
For sure. I'm glad to do that.
Okay.
And if you can share, I'll reshare with you the Discord link. I'm sure there will be like a lot of good information for the hackers. But thank you so much. Like, it was great.
Yeah. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you.
Yeah.
I will transmit you the materials, contents, everything immediately after.
Cool. All right. And so now it's time for another very useful, very interesting project called HAL.xyz. Bye, Luigi. We'll see you later.
So soon.